Hupp, and I'm a doctoral student with the Higher Education and Adult Learning program through Walden University. I'm here today to offer a presentation to describe a basic understanding of the transformative learning theory of adult learning as offered by Dr. Jack Mezirow. Dr. Mezirow is a renowned expert in the field of adult learning. He is Professor Emeritus at Columbia University, and as such should be considered, as I said, an expert in the field of adult learning. I would like to invite my colleagues from Walden University to join me as we move through this presentation on the PowerPoint that I did post to the doc sharing site of our classroom's website. Having said that, let's start with trying to understand the theory of Dr. Mezirow. Transformative learning, a definition of that process is offered by Mercer in 2006. It states, the process by which we transform our taken-for-granted frames of reference to make them more inclusive, discriminating, open, emotionally capable of change, and reflective so that they may generate beliefs and opinions that will prove more true or justified to guide action. Another definition of transformational learning that I was able to obtain was offered by Clark in 1993. And that definition reads, learning that induces more far-reaching change in the learner than other kinds of learning, especially learning experiences which shape the learner and produce a significant impact or paradigm shift which affects the learner's subsequent experiences. So as we can see from these definitions, transformational learning is something that happens to remold, so to speak, our basic assumptions of our world around us, how we interpret experiences. And as we move on, we're going to learn a little more about how Dr. Mezirow, in particular, described this process. Dr. Mezirow offered 10 steps or phases of transformation. Those phases include experience, a disorienting dilemma, critical reflection, self-examination, critical assessment of assumptions, recognition that one is not alone in the process, discourse, exploration of options for forming new roles, formation of a plan to address the problem, and reintegration back into life with new meaning perspectives. To gain so to speak, a transformational learning experience, Dr. Mezirow described two dimensions to our frame of reference. The first of those dimensions that he described was habits of mind. Dr. Mezirow believes that habits of mind often function at the subconscious level of our psyche, and that we're, for the most part, not even aware that these perceptions guide us through life. They're more generalized and far-reaching, and they act as a filter for interpreting the meaning of the experiences that we encounter. The second dimension that Dr. Mezirow introduced was points of view, or meaning schemes. And Dr. Mezirow believed that these points of view were where specific beliefs and attitudes are grouped. And he felt that a combination of many of these could lead to a habit of mind being developed. Dr. Mezirow also introduced the concept that points of view should be much more amenable to change than our habits of mind, based on feedback from others, and because they are more immediately located in our consciousness and we're aware of them, wherein, as we spoke earlier, habits of mind are often something that we're not even aware we're experiencing at the time. Examples of transformational learning experiences, what we have to keep into consideration first and foremost is that transformational learning is not something, it's a process. There's not going to be an end product. It's a process wherein people change, their behavior changes accordingly, and it's usually precipitated by some disorienting event that causes people to realize that their basic their fundamental understanding of their environment isn't necessarily an accurate one. They have to rethink things. They have to, also that we have to keep in mind that these transformational learning processes may not always be what we would consider positive or good things. It could be bad habits developed as a result of this. Perhaps one example I can think of would be a child that grows up in a household that isn't nurturing, isn't of the educational process. They don't present with a warm teaching, mentoring style, so to speak, to teach that child positive ways of learning. The child doesn't necessarily maybe feel loved. So they learn ways to interpret their environment, ways to react in response to that interpretation based on things that aren't always quite so positive. And in turn, they learn maladaptive coping mechanisms versus the child that was raised in the nurturing environment. We have to keep in mind that transformational learning experiences are not always conscious or deliberate. And it may not involve any overt act of learning. It may just be an observation of the environment that leads an adult learner to learn a new way of thinking about things, of interpreting their reality. Not all learning is transformative, as we well know. We can learn by rote or repetition. You know, you do things often enough and they become ingrained in your memory so that you can be almost like a robot. It's not a learning experience that transforms you from some level of understanding to another. There's several theories of adult learning, and these theories can certainly lead to problems because of the numbers of them. They lead to a fragmentation, and people have difficulty identifying which theory they should in fact wrap their arms around. I would argue that there probably will never be a theory that neatly packages human beings into one nice, neat little package with a bow on top based on the individuality of the human race as a whole. There's just no two people that learn things in exactly the same way. So therefore, there's always going to be probably many theories. There's probably always going to be that fragmentation because of the sheer numbers of learning theories that are out there.